Today, we're going to show you how to build your own high-performing in-house content team without big payrolls. One that allows you to create the type of content that generates consistent inbound leads, builds a strong brand in your industry, and drives revenue for the business. What you're about to learn doesn't just compete with a lot of the overpriced marketing agencies, it destroys them. We're seeing this across the board in almost every single industry. In-house internal content teams are outperforming outsourced content when done right. But the when done right part is extremely important. And that's where a lot of companies trying to build their own internal content teams go wrong. They try it, it's not a bad strategy, it's a good practice, it's a good idea in theory, but then they go to execute it and they hire the wrong people, they don't train them the right way, and it ends up failing, and then they have to go back to a marketing agency. But that's not gonna happen to you, because in this video, we're going into the details on how to do this right. For those of you that know me, welcome back. For those of you that don't know me, my company and I have a really unique perspective when it comes to this, because we've been both the marketing agency, we've done content for companies, and then we've also helped companies build their own in-house content teams that have generated millions of impressions, consistent inbound leads, and built online brands from virtually scratch, sometimes in a matter of just months. So we've seen both sides of it. And what we saw, even from our own experience, was again, in-house internal content teams completely outperforming any outsourced content. So here's what you're gonna learn in this video. Why in-house teams destroy outsourcing every single time. The right content strategy and brand story to put in place before you hire a single person. Who you need on your content team, where to find them, and what to pay them. How to develop that team into high performers and a content team that actually generates revenue for the business. And I'm even gonna show you the AI-powered content workflows and automations that we use that will save you and your team hundreds of hours every single year. Oh, and I'm also going to give away my detailed playbook on how to build your own internal content team that is going to go in even more detail and have things in there that I'm not covering in this video. That's coming later in the video, so definitely stick around for it. All right, so let's dive in and turn your business into a content machine. This is a little bit of a different style than you're probably used to with a traditional YouTube video, where it's me and Callista, one of our content strategists and coaches here at our team Impacts. And we're just gonna walk through kind of 5, let's call it key points that illustrate exactly what I just told you in the intro of this video. And the first one on that list is why in-house teams crush outsourcing or working with a marketing agency to do all your content every single time. And I'm not gonna spend a ton of time on this, because if you're here watching, listening to this video, you probably have already come across a lot of these things, and you're probably in the mindset of like, yeah, I might wanna not hire a marketing agency. I might actually wanna build this internally. So I'll spend maybe 1-2 minutes on this. Here are things that we hear from B2B companies. Mostly we work with 7 to 8 figure businesses. We hear this on a daily basis when they're working with a marketing agency. The content doesn't perform. Low views, low engagement, low impressions, no inbound leads or revenue generated from it. There's no accountability or performance metrics. It's kind of like, hey, we're just posting the content, we're getting the content out there, we're checking the box, but there's not any accountability to like, is it driving real results? We always hear it's a revolving door for account managers, meaning they work with a marketing agency, they get assigned an account manager, and then it's like, you know, someone that works for the company, then they leave, it's someone else, they leave someone else. It's like they got 20, 30 other clients they're trying to manage, and so they don't get kind of the time and attention they need. It's very slow to produce. The content in general is just like, it takes a long time to get things done and back to them, because it's got to go through that marketing agency, and then they've got other clients that they got to work with and prioritize. And then another really big important one is that they tell us that the content just feels very disconnected. Like, we often hear things like, they just don't get us. Like, they don't understand the type of content we're trying to put out, our brand, our story, like who we really are. It doesn't sound like our voice when we see it on LinkedIn or Instagram or YouTube or whatever it is. And when you build your own internal content team, everything I listed out there, you have the complete opposite. You have the higher performance. It definitely sounds like you, because it's coming from you. It's you and your internal content team. There's no revolving door because the team's internal. It's way faster to produce. And I actually think longer term, in most cases, it's actually more cost effective to do it internal versus having to outsource and pay a marketing agency for the rest of history. And so when you build it internally, you own the brand, not some agency. Key point number 2, you gotta have the right content strategy and brand story in place before you hire a single person. Before you even think about hiring that first team member, you need to have your brand story and your content strategy down. If you build your team without doing this first, it'll blow up in your face. And we see this all the time. Like, companies will hire social media managers, entry-level people, fractional marketing people, and they expect them to come in and do miracles and perform magic and get all these amazing results. And the reality is they don't even have their brand story down. They don't even know who they are, what type of content they should be putting out. They don't have a dialed in content strategy. It's someone comes in, they're like, we think we should be posting on LinkedIn. So let's do that. It's like, that's not a strategy though. And let me just ask you this, if you're watching this right now, do you ever find yourself wondering, what should I talk about in my content? What's the unique point of view I have so I don't just sound like everyone else in my industry, like all my competitors? How do I disrupt in a meaningful way? Not gimmicky, not like I'm just gonna be disruptive and annoying for the sake of it, but really having a different point of view and perspective that not everyone else has. How do I create demand for my services and have people waiting to sign up for me before I even release a product or a service? These are all things that these questions get answered when you have a solid strategy in place. So I was talking to somebody the other day on a weekly call or a bi-weekly call that we have, and he was telling me, Alex, I feel like some of your content's like disruptive. It's like it goes against the grain. You guys talking about, not using an agency and building your own internal content team. And it's like, 99% of people or companies are doing the opposite. He's like, how do I, what are some topics that I could talk about that would disrupt and have a unique point of view? And I'm like, well, dude, I can't give you topics. It's like, you have to develop that by going through the brand story strategy and the brand strategy and the content strategy. And you have to develop, what is our unique angle? What is our point of view or perspective that is different? That also, by the way, very important, ties into the offerings. Because it can't just be like, we think we're going to say this. And then it's like, then a client works with you and they realize, oh, you say all this, but behind the scenes, you didn't deliver on any of that. That was just a facade. So I told him, I was challenged him to really go through, he's not a client of ours, but I challenged him to go through some of the brand story exercises and really build out a content strategy. Because when you have that, you're never going to have to ask the question, what should I post about? You just never would. You would go back to your plan and strategy and you say, well, it's right here. Well, what's my unique perspective? What's my unique angle? How do I stand out? You would know. It's right here. So that's what we're going to cover. I mean, obviously we could do a whole podcast episode about each one of these. Honestly, there's so much to dive into. We spent hours and hours and hours with clients developing these, but I'm going to kind of highlight the brand story exercise. I think everyone should go through if they haven't. And you might say, I went through that a couple years ago. Yeah, but it's not on your website. It's not on your LinkedIn profile. It's not showing up in your content. So guess what? Sometimes you need to go through stuff again and actually live it and do it and take action from it. So if that's the case, or you've never been exposed to this, I think it's going to be a game changer. I'm also going to give you examples too. So it's not just like, hey, do this, follow this. And then you're like, cool, but I don't really see how this plays out. I'll give you our exact example too. So the brand story exercise is somebody named Donald Miller came up with this, the idea of story brand. And basically what it is positioning your brand as a story in the marketplace that your customer would want to be a part of. So most companies are out there they're the hero of the story. It's like, we're the best in the company. We're the most innovative, sophisticated, technologically advanced. And it's like, cool, but then where does that leave your customer? If they're not the hero in the story, then who is? Then it's you, then they can't be the hero. So it goes like this. The main character enters the story. That is your customer prospect, if they're not a customer yet. They encounter a villain problem, right? So they encounter something that causes pain, that's a challenge, that is preventing them from getting the results that they want. They then meet you, who you are the guide, you are the Obi-Wan Kenobi, right? And they are the Luke Skywalker. And that villain, that problem is the evil empire, Darth Vader. And this is where we want to, when they meet you, this is where you want to differentiate. This is where you have to have that differentiation down. I don't think he necessarily goes into a lot of that in the book. But it's something that we take our customers through, because if you have to find what is that unique angle, what is that thing that you're doing in a marketplace that is really different than everyone else. And if you look at Apple, Tesla, Liquid Death, Impacts, you look at a lot of these companies that are kind of breaking through the noise and separating themselves. It's not about being a little bit better than somebody else. It's about, hey, everyone's trying to be a little bit better in the industry. It's a losing game. And that's how you get commoditized. What you want to say is, hey, we don't want to just be a little bit better. We actually want to be completely different. So we want to go in a completely different directions, or in a category of one. So that's where you want to have that differentiation down. And that takes work. That takes kind of a workshopping. It takes ideas. It takes throwing it out. Hey, what do we do? What do our customers say about us? Getting feedback from our customers, doing surveys, having real conversations with your team and figuring out what is that thing that separates us and makes us different. And why does that matter to the customer? Some people come up with stuff and it's like, cool, that makes you different. But it's like we're third generation or this, we've been in the business for 50 years. Cool. But what does that mean to the customer, right? It has to mean something to them. From that point, we're going to give them a plan and call them into action. So we're going to say, this is what you're going to need to do to get the results that you want, to defeat that villain, overcome that problem. We're going to show you the roadmap and give you the roadmap. And then depending on how you work with that customer is the level of involvement there. But ultimately, you're going to call them into action and they're going to have to do their part, or you're going to do it for some of them for them, or whatever they're going to do. Maybe even it's just calling them into action is getting them to sign up. And then you work with the client, and then the client gets results. And they go from main character in the story to the hero in the story. That's the brand story. Quick example for us, impacts marketing, because I like examples too. It just makes it real. It's easier to understand. And it's kind of another story. That's why we connect with these stories, because we're humans. We've been telling stories since the day that a human was a human. And even before that, Neanderthals and we were writing stuff in caves. It's easy to understand a story. If I gave you like a script to remember that's a minute long, you'd probably fail to remember that. We all would. But if I told you a minute story and then you had to go repeat that story to your boyfriend or family or whatever, you'd be like, so yeah, the story was this. You'd have most of it, honestly. The script, it'd be like, oh, I don't even remember the first line. So our brains are programmed. Stories help us remember things and pass things down to generations for our survival. So this shit's like deeply embedded in your brain. So impacts marketing. Main character enters the story. That's you. 7 to 8 figure B2B company that wants to build their own internal content team potentially. They encounter a problem, the villain, which is they're outsourcing their content. Like we talked about earlier, it's slow. It's not producing the results they want. It's ineffective. It doesn't feel like their brand voice or story. Then they meet us and we differentiate right away and we say, hey, you know how you're outsourcing your content? There's actually a better way. Let me show you what that is. We're the guide. We give them the plan, which is what I'm doing right this second. I'm giving you the plan and calling you into action, whether you work with us or not. And then we're here to help our clients get better results and help them become the hero in the story. Help them build a number one brand in their industry, even if they've got no online presence now. Generate content that actually gets engagement, drives inbound leads and revenue for the company. That's it. When you do all this, you know what to talk about. You know who you're for and who you're not for. You know what to talk about, what not to talk about, and you know how to differentiate based on your unique value that you provide that no one else does. The second part of this, and keep in mind, we're still on key point number 2, which is you need to have the right content strategy and brand story before you hire a single person on the content team. Trust me, we're going to get to the content team, but if you don't do this first, it doesn't matter. So that second part is the content strategy. And so the first thing we want to, there's a whole episode we could create off just this alone. The first thing I would look at is go back to that brand story. That's what we do with customers. So it's like, hey, we're starting with the brand story, the brand strategy. Once we have that down, we take that and we say, let's embed this in content. All we're trying to do with our content is communicate that brand story, communicate the differentiation, the value that we bring to the marketplace through useful and helpful content that builds trust and credibility with our ideal clients, right? That's really it. So we want to base that content strategy off the brand strategy and story. So, and from there, we want to do a couple things. One, we want to establish our content pillars. So we want to say, what are the main kind of core areas that we want to talk about? And we're really not going to stray from that too much. Maybe 90% of our content is in these content pillars. I would say you typically want 2. Usually how we do it with clients, and we did this today, right, is one of those core pillars is very niche dialed in. The other one is still niche, but it's more like outer ring niche. Let me show you what I mean. Ours, the core niche, pillar number 1, is teaching companies, 7, 8 figure companies, why and how to build their own internal content teams. That's pillar number 1. That's what we're doing here. Pillar number 2, the outer niche. It's not like the other pillar is like some random thing like health and fitness or something, right? It's like it has to do with the first pillar in the company and the offering. The second one would be the outer, which is I'm going to teach those same companies and CEOs, founders, executives how to use video content and social media to drive inbound leads, to build their brand, to win new clients. These are the types of things I'm still going to talk about. And so they have to do with the pillar number 1, but they're a little bit of a broader kind of outer layer to that could apply to a lot of people, even if they weren't trying to build their own content team, or it's a single person, or it's a huge company. Really, those tips and insights and stories, they apply to everyone. Within those content pillars, we've got a lot of different concepts. And this is where I think sometimes it gets confusing, because it's like, hey, is one of my content pillars like behind the scenes videos? And it's like, no, that's a concept or a format within the content pillar. So the content pillar are the high level, what are we talking about based on the brand story and the content strategy? So we typically start there. Then what we want to do is build out something that we call the value bracket. And if you're putting together a content strategy and you don't have this built out, I promise you, the content may not work, but you're definitely missing a massive opportunity. The value bracket is like a circuit. Picture it like an open circuit, like an electrical board. And from the right side, you have people coming in, and this is how we're going to add value to our audience, our ideal clients. They come in from the right side. It doesn't mean they have to go right to left in order. They could go right to left, left to right. They could skip a level in the value bracket, but they have to basically come in on that right side regardless, because they can't download an offer magnet or lead magnet or be a guest on the podcast unless you've gotten them in the front door. They have to know about you, right? So if they've seen you on content or it's been a referral or something like that. So it's got to start from the right, but once they get in, it can kind of go a bunch of different ways. The idea behind this is, so we're not just saying, oh, we're posting on LinkedIn and that's our strategy. It's like, that's not a strategy, right? That's something you would do within the strategy. But the idea is to connect all of our content together in one cohesive strategy. So we have an ecosystem of content for our customers. So if they see me on LinkedIn, it doesn't just stop there. They can download the playbook on how to build their own internal content team. They can go to YouTube and see longer form videos. They can discover we have a podcast. They can be a guest on the podcast if they're local to the Chicagoland area. So the point is we want to build this out and really understand where are we putting our efforts in terms of content. And then what we want to do from there is know exactly how we measure the success and the ROI of the content. And I can tell you for how we do it and how we measure success with content without getting into the people development yet. We'll get there. But just in the content, there's really 3 buckets to measure success and ROI. The first one is engagement metrics, and that's impressions, views, likes, comments, qualitative feedback, what are customers saying, things like that. The second one is buyer intent metrics. Now we're getting not just engagement and views, impressions, things like that. We're getting people that are taking action. So they're signing up for an email list. They're downloading the offer magnet or the playbook. They're becoming a guest on the podcast. And then lastly, bucket number 3 is we have business impact metrics, which would be inbound leads, meetings booked, conversations started, clients won, and revenue in the door. And ultimately with all of our social media efforts, really what we're trying to do, if you boil it down, is start conversations with the right people that can drive business. That's it. Social media is just a great place to scale your voice, scale your message, share your story, and drive more conversations with the right people. That's it. If we don't have those types of things in place, the pillars, the value circuit, how we measure success, you can't commit to anything. And if you can't commit to anything, you can't really hold anyone accountable. So it's like, how are we doing? Like, what's the ROI? I had somebody tell me the other day, like, how are you measuring the success of the content? What's the goal? And they were like, brand awareness. I go, how do you measure brand awareness? She goes, I don't really know. So there's nowhere to go from there, right? Like if it's just like, or if it's like, for example, if it's just, we want to win clients, how many? How does that generate a lead first? What would be the leading indicators that you're going to generate leads in the first few months? So you've got to have a plan behind that. You can't hold people accountable or yourself accountable, and you can't measure success unless you have that first. I'm gonna take a quick moment to pause right here. If you're getting value from this video or other YouTube videos that we've done and you haven't hit the subscribe button yet, please do so you don't miss any other videos just like this, because I am committed to giving it away on the YouTube channel. And we're going to be doing more videos, more higher value videos. We're taking all the stuff that we know and embedding them and giving it straight to you. So hit that subscribe button and make sure you don't miss the next video. Back to the message. I'm telling you, there's a psychological thing about having someone with you doing this. Because if I was by myself, I would have started and stopped a million times. Yeah. And this is maybe a side piece of advice for those that want to create videos, but are struggling to do the type of videos where you have to just hit record and be behind a camera or scripting things out. Like I heard a marketing director, I guess it was, or marketing manager say, I'm scripting out videos for our CEO. And I was just like, fucking dude, no, don't script out all these videos. Like get him talking about the right things, he or she talking about the right things. Maybe have a hook that you want to go to, some content fundamentals, key points, but don't script out all this stuff, right? So one of the easiest ways though is to just have conversational content, podcast, or you have an employee, you bring them in here, you talk with them, or at least they're part of the conversation. It's much more comfortable. That's much more human-like and natural to us versus like, let me press record by myself and try to get content or have someone else record me and read a script. That is not natural. That is not natural human behavior. So just a side piece I'll throw in this before we get to the next section. Key point number 3, who do you need on your content team? Where do you find them? And what do you pay them? Obviously, this depends on the type of content team you're building, the area in which you're building in, and there's a bunch of different factors, but I am going to give you some real things. So at least you have a general idea, and definitely you'll know who you need and where to find them and things like that. So let's define some roles really quickly if we're building out the internal content team, okay? Not to say these are the only 4 roles, but these are like the core 4 roles that we work with when we build out content teams for companies and even us internally. The first one is the content creator. This is the subject matter expert. These are the people or person that are going to become the key person of influence in the industry. So it's not someone that doesn't understand the business. It's not someone that doesn't, understand the clients. This is someone that knows the craft. They can talk about it, right? They can be interviewed, they can make content, they can be on podcasts, whatever it is. Usually when we work with companies, it is founder, CEO, and potentially another employee, director, or executive, something like that. In our experience, if it's not founder or CEO led, it just tends to not work as well. Like I've had companies be like, we want our people to create content and video. I'm like, cool, are you? And like, no. It's like, well, then it's going to be tough, right? Like you got to lead the way. Second position you'd want to look at is a content director. The difference between a content director and a social media manager or a content manager, a content director is doing filming with you. So they direct, do different shots, and usually it's just with a smartphone and a wireless mic. It's nothing crazy, but they're going to film the subject matter expert. We have taught pretty much all of our clients to hire a content director versus just doing a social media manager or a content manager that is not going to film with you. And the reason that is because you can get much more dynamic content from somebody when they're filming you. You can be on the go, you can do better storytelling, more dynamic shots. You really can get more out of it. And then that person now knows your brand, the story, how you like to film, your personality. They can suggest things, they can come up with ideas, they can film a new way. Like there's a ton of value there. I had someone that we did this for a summer internship. We did it for maybe 4 or 5 months. We got hundreds of videos out of that. I think we stopped filming and I still had content 3 or 4 months later that we're still editing now today. So it's like there's a big value add there. That person could definitely be a full-time person that also does other functions of your marketing team. If you didn't do that, you don't have to do that. You would want at minimum a social media manager or a content manager. They're kind of one and the same. They manage the content, they manage social media. Maybe a content manager is a little bit more of a holistic kind of picture. They manage content outside of social. A social media manager is typically just doing social media content. But the reason you want someone doing this is there's just too much in the weeds, day-to-day stuff. Like you see at Callistus, like you got to write the copy, the post, work the AI. You have to give feedback to the editors. You have to potentially come up with content ideation for the subject matter experts. You got to really own the content. Someone in the company has to own the content. If it's just the CEO trying to do it by themselves, or it's some executive that, really thinks the company should do content, but they're not, that's going to be tough because they have other jobs to do. You need someone full-time that says, I own the content. If we produce amazing content, that's under my umbrella. If it doesn't work or it's not amazing, I have 100% ownership as to why. And then the last key role would be video editor. Okay, so this does not need to be someone in the States. This could be someone abroad. We've had a lot of success with great editors in the Philippines. And so I would look at what types of videos you need edited. And then I would think about what type of social media video that you need edited. You probably don't need some super high commercial, high production type videos. You need someone that can edit short form videos, maybe a podcast, maybe some YouTube videos. So think about, based on that, can I leverage talent abroad? Or do I need to have someone here in the States? Because I haven't found a ton of value of having an editor in-house, meaning at the office as like a W-2 employee. Content director, yes, because they're filming, they're creating the content with you. Absolutely, that is a great investment you should make in your business, 100% if you can. Or do like we do, we have a hybrid where it's like, Calista kind of helps me be the content director, but then also like Wednesdays, like we're doing now, but then also has her full role in the company as strategist and coach. That works too, potentially, right? But the video editor really just needs to edit videos. They don't need to be on the same time zone. They don't need to be in the office. At least in our experience, I've been doing this for 5 years. They do tremendously really good work if you find the right person. They work on their own terms as long as they get the outputs that they need to get done, and everyone's happy. So personally, I would try to get somebody offshore. We'll talk about pay here in a second. And how to treat those people, I think, is really important too, because you can't treat them just like, oh, they're our outsourced person. We went through Upwork or Fiverr and we got someone, and now They don't feel like part of the team. They're not really treated that well. They don't have time off. It's just like, it's not a good situation, right? So take care of your people. But in terms of what to pay them, content creator, key person of influence, the subject matter experts, those are your CEOs, founders, executives. So obviously you've probably already got that figured out. Whatever they're making, that's their salary. Content director, I would say, entry level to maybe 1 to 3 years of experience, roughly 40 to 55K. Maybe you're getting 60 if you got someone with several years of good experience. Could be higher if it's someone even more seasoned, but probably you're going to start around that range. That's what we've done. We've hired basically entry level people right out of college with marketing degrees, or they did, some summer internships with social media management and things like that. And then what we do is we coach and train them on how to be high performers. In terms of the video or social media manager, if we kept it in the States, I'd say you're probably looking at the same range as the content director, unless they have experience. And again, that changes things. If you're talking about social media manager in the, abroad, let's just call it Philippines, somewhere outside of the US where the cost of living is much, much lower. So your dollar goes way farther. Like, it's incredible. I've been to the Philippines. I've watched $1,000 turn into like $10,000. It's really crazy. That you're probably going to be in the roughly, this may change, but just roughly $1,400 to $1,700 a month for a salaried social media manager abroad. Video editor, you're going to be about the same thing, $1,400 to $1,700 a month USD. If you're outsourcing Philippines or some country where the cost of living is significantly lower. Now, there are some people like, oh, you can pay, $5 an hour or $4 an hour, because I think minimum wage there is like, it's not much at all. It's not even close to what those numbers are. But don't do that. Like, don't like lowball somebody as low as you possibly can go, and don't offer benefits, bonuses, time off. Like, don't, just because you can, it doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. And I think if you do that, you're going to lose people because they don't really feel like they're part of the team or taken care of. What we do is we have a benefits package for those folks in the Philippines. We offer salary, unlimited paid time off. We give them bonuses. We create a great work environment. We let them set their own hours as long as they get their things done. That's why we've retained pretty much every single person that we've brought on in the last several years, because we try to create a good working environment, give them the things that they deserve, and they're able to provide an amazing life for them and their family. And we're able to cut down some of the costs, because over here, if I hired somebody, I have to pay them a lot more in W-2 and benefits and things like that, because the cost of living is much higher here. It's just the way the world works. Similar to in the United States, you could go live in New York or Chicago downtown or LA. That cost of living is going to be much different than if you're in the heart of Alabama in a small to medium-sized town. And so the houses are going to be a different price. The salaries are going to be a different price. So all that is reflected in there. Now you understand why to build your internal content team. You've got the strategy, brand story, that's down. You starting to hire the right people. You know what to pay them, what positions to hire for. Now you got to, once you get those people in, this is very important with any role, is you've got to develop that team into high performers. They drive real revenue with dangerously good content that performs on social and even off social. When we break this down, I think you would probably agree, Calista, what do you think the hardest part about implementing, like working with clients on how to build their own internal content team is?
I would say the hardest part of developing, content directors and internal content teams would just be to align on that brand story and really, land into those buckets that we help them to come up with those content pillars. And I would say that there's a lot that maybe when you work with marketing agencies or you're outsourcing your content, you don't necessarily have to do that. So it's just a whole new realm of experiences.
We were, going through this today and saying, how do we really I think from a video editing standpoint, it's more clear, right? You can look at a video and say, does this match kind of our brand? Are the captions right? Are they using some animations and things like that just to enhance the story? Nothing too crazy, because we know if they over edit it ruins a video. Don't over edit your videos. It's simple, clean, but it's kind of got a creative element that helps tell the story. That's a little bit easier to judge. You look at the video and you go yes or no. Like, you can kind of just see it. With the content director or social media manager, it was a process for us to really be able to teach these people and coach them and develop them into high performers. But I'll tell you this, there's definitely 3 buckets that you want to look at. And, we're not going to be able to go into extreme depth here, but I'll give you enough to where you can take this and kind of run with it for sure. This is a game changer for us. As soon as we came up with it, we're like, yes, this is what we needed to be able to do to really develop social media managers, content directors, content managers to where they're really good. Because I promise you, even if you have a good strategy, you plug a content manager in place, you plug a social media manager in place, like, oh, we're going to hire somebody. We think we got a good strategy. We watched your videos, Alex. Great. Then you plug that person in and they don't know what the hell they're doing. And you're like, here's a strategy. Like, cool. A strategy is one thing. The execution of the content strategy is an entirely different thing. On paper, yes, it was a great idea. In execution, it failed, right? And we see this all the time. So I want you to break this down in 3 different buckets when you're evaluating your content team outside of editors. Number 1 is strategic thinking. Do they know how to look at the brand story, the content strategy, and think strategically through next steps? And the content pillars and what they need to create, and really think about, does this line up with the strategy that we have? Do I understand how that value circuit all comes together and they all play a significant role in the overarching strategy? Are they coming up with new ideas and strategic initiatives on top of that? The second bucket is content creation. Content fundamentals and platform mastery is what this comes down to. So content fundamentals, because when you think about content creation, you've got workflow, process management, you've got content ideation, you've got filming, you have content curation, trimming up the videos, you've got post-production, working with editors. Obviously, there's AI embedded into that, and we're going to get to that in 1 second here. But that's kind of the process of creating content. So if you want to do it good start to finish, you need content fundamentals and you need platform mastery. Content fundamentals is knowing how to craft the video and get the audience's attention in the first half a second. It's developing good hooks. It's knowing how, hey, we got a story to tell here. It's not just tell it like in a boring way. Let's like really craft this message in a way where it's exciting and it's intriguing. We're speaking directly to our audience based on the strategy. You know, how do we retain the audience throughout a long form video like this? There are things we're doing you don't even know we're doing in here that are content fundamentals, right? So we have to know how to speak to the camera, how to create the compelling content that actually drives engagement and results. And the other thing is the platform mastery, which is just, and this all falls under the content creation bucket, number 2, but platform mastery is really important. That's understanding and knowing the differences between LinkedIn and how to win there versus a place like YouTube or TikTok. Right? Like if you've done well on LinkedIn or you got a decent rhythm going there, and then you go to YouTube and you don't understand that platform and you try to do the same thing as you did on LinkedIn, it's going to fail. And the same way if you're doing something on YouTube and then you say, well, let's just take what we're doing on YouTube and put it on LinkedIn, that's probably not going to work either. And the same with TikTok and X and Instagram. So content fundamentals and platform mastery are 2 big ones there that you want to evaluate. The third bucket that you want to evaluate is drive for results. When they're talking to you, are they just saying, yeah, we posted 5 videos this week, I have 20 content topics lined up? That's fine. But I also want to know, how are we connecting this to the business results and goals? So how many downloads did we have? How many inbound leads did we have? Are we booking any meetings? If not, what is our plan to be able to do that in the near future? So it's getting them to really, and this is something you have to work with them on, and we do this with our clients, is you got to get them thinking about the end results. It's not that we're saying, all right, we're 30 days into our strategy. What's the ROI? Where's all the clients? That's not realistic, right? We want to measure our content in those 3 buckets that we talked about earlier: engagement, buyer intent metrics, and then business impact metrics. We need them thinking like they have a drive for results, that they're trying, everything they're doing is to get a certain result. Because if they're not thinking that way, that's where oftentimes you get in that bucket of just like, you oftentimes get in this rhythm of just posting content to post content. It's like, yeah, it's like, how is it going? And they're like, good, we're posting 5 days a week. It's like, is it doing anything? Like, have we evaluated the content? Is it driving results? Are we starting conversations with prospects? You need them thinking about that. It can't be you just ask once a month or once a quarter. You need them coming to you and being proactive about that. A fair warning here too, this takes time. Like, we are people that do this for a living, and it takes time to develop people. Right? So, and most people don't have these skill sets, because modern day social media and short form video and a lot of things that we use now, and even some of the AI and things like that, it's only a few years old. So you're not going to find someone with 10, 15, 20 years of experience that has done this. It wasn't around that long. So it takes time. What I would say, of course, coming from somebody who does this, and this is what our company does, obviously. So I'm going to plug us for a quick second, but we can shortcut the success, right? So it helps to work with experts and guides that know how to do this, that are not going to guess. They're going to come in day one and be able to show you exactly how to do this. And we just see it. We see companies like, I won't name the company, but our recent video testimonial is a great example of that. Literally their first few videos, they're generating leads. They're getting, I think, 1.4 million impressions in the first 7 days of posting videos on LinkedIn. So there's a way to expedite the success, but either way, you've got to be somewhat patient because this is people you're dealing with and they need time, coach, some love, some accountability, and some help. Moving on to key point number 5, the AI-powered workflow and automations that'll save you and your team hundreds of hours of manual work every single year. We all know AI automation is only getting more and more advanced. Of course, there's like video avatars, there's crazy technology, there's ChatGPT, there's Claude, there's, a bunch of things that help write your content. We embed all of that and use most of that in our process. There's a time and a place for all of that, but I want to highlight just a couple of things that are like, just say, let's call it like entry to mid-level that you want to implement in your content workflow. Again, we're trying to eliminate as much manual tasks as we can. We want to run a lean, high-performing team. We don't want to have to hire more people just to get stuff done that AI or a good workflow can do for us. So here's a few places you want to use automation and AI and embed it into your content workflow. I'll just give you a couple of really good examples that you can go and do. When I drop a raw video in G Drive, I want that to automatically create a card in my project management software. Trello, ClickUp, Monday, whatever you're using, that links the file to it and then has the transcript of the video in there as well. So in other words, I don't have to drop a file in G Drive, a video, raw video, and then go into my project management software, create a card, create the title, grab the link, share the link, get the transcript. That's all done. That eliminates a lot of time when you're talking about a lot of content moving throughout the week. Once the video is edited and ready for copy, I want to be able to move it to ready for copy in my project management software. And there's an AI agent in there that we've built out that will take the transcript automatically from the card. It's got to be in the card. And it will start to write copy in my tone of voice, my personality, in accordance with my business, my brand, and the content strategy. So all I'm doing is literally, let's talk Trello. I move a card in Trello from it's been edited to ready for copy. As soon as I move that card, I do nothing else. And it generates the copy. And we train that AI agent to make sure that it's the right kind of copy. Third, when a video is ready to post and it moves into, at least in our systems, it moves into a column called post on deck. That means it's ready to go. It's ready to be scheduled. Once that happens, there's another automation in there where it basically takes the video on that card, it duplicates it, it puts the duplicate version in an video archive because you want to store all your content. You want to be able to use it later on or program AI and do a bunch of other cool stuff with it. You definitely don't want to delete them. So that goes in the archive. The other one goes in the edited videos ready to be scheduled folder. So now it's not ready for review or waiting, to be processed. It's now in the folder where then the social media manager, the content director, whoever's going to post the content will pull from that folder because that video is done. And then that card moves to archived. All of that happens in the matter of seconds when you get this set up. There's endless things that we can do with AI and automation, right? You definitely want to use it in copywriting. You definitely want to use it in post-production. You definitely want to use it in ideation. There's even going to be things that we're going to talk about in the future of using it during the creation process and things like that. There's 2 ways to kind of do this. If you're thinking about, all right, that sounds great, Alex, I'd love to have that, but how do I actually do that, right? You could definitely, and this is something we did early on, you definitely can sign up for Zapier, which is low cost. And then Zapier basically allows you to connect more than one program together. So you'll have to go in there. When I did this, it was like I hired a consultant that does automation and she showed me the steps because it's kind of tricky when you get in there and you've never done this before, right? I'm not an automation specialist. I paid her, she showed me how to do it. Now what we do, so you can use Zapier, figure it out on your own, pay a consultant, whatever you want to do. Now what we do is we have a partner company that has their entire system where we can house and do all automations and AI agent build outs and things like that for the copy. All of it can be done with one partner company. So if you're a 7-8 figure business and you want to potentially get a hold of that company or want that company's name, contact information, just send me a message, A Sheridan, my last name, @impacts.com. You can find it in here. Send me a message, drop me a comment, and I will connect you with that company if you're interested. If not, again, you can totally do this yourself, or if you work with another AI company, that's totally fine. At the end of the day, you just want to have this done to be able to save hundreds of hours every single year. It adds up, and it also is, again, less time that your team needs to spend doing this too. So by now, you should have everything that you need, or at minimum enough to get started to build out your own internal content team so you don't have to rely on marketing agencies ever again. And you've also, not only do you have what you need to build the internal content team, You've also got a little bit of content strategy, some brand story frameworks that you can use that are going to help you before you even hire that talent. The only thing you got to do right now, and I don't want you to forget this, is download that playbook. Because again, the playbook has things in here. It's for free. It has things in there that are not in this video. So please snatch this up. The video is going to end in 5 seconds. So go ahead and snatch it up right now. You got 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you guys.